Hi, Sean.
Hi, Mark. Hi, everybody.
So this is a live stream we set up with Sean, and it seems like everything's technically going okay. And you can see us fine, right, Sean, and hear us?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the one thing I do want to say because I forgot to say that I had a power outing last night around
Oh
this
no!
time. So if it goes out, the internet goes out.
Oh yeah, well that makes sense, I
So
guess.
if I disappear and don't come back immediately, that's why.
Oh, I think it might be because you give out some top secret information during our conversation.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, so you're in England. And we're
Yes.
in Vermont in the Northeast U.S. I've never been to England. I've been on the coast. I've gone by in ships and
Yeah.
stuff, and I have never had the good fortune to stop. And you actually grew up not a huge distance from here, or at least you've been here, right?
I've been to Vermont. Yeah, to sort of a corner of Vermont, I guess, the bottom corner.
It all
Uh,
looks the same.
but I grew up in northern Ontario on an island, Manitoulin Island.
Oh
So
wow!
it was way in the middle of nowhere. There was like, they didn't plow up to about a mile or two from where we lived. So,
Wow!
but that was my really younger days, and then we moved back again later at another time. But it was
So was
quite
it
nice.
mostly dirt roads and that sort of thing?
Dirt roads, when you had a road, and swamps, going through swamps, and it'd be washed out at times.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on things, because where we lived, where was just above a swamp, so that was it was nice in mosquito time.
Yeah, I lived in a bog once, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and that was up in Maine. So did you spend a lot of time outdoors?
When I was young, yeah,
Yeah.
when I was young. But then when I went to the city, went to Toronto when I was 14, 15. There wasn't really, there's not, well, I spent time outdoors, but mostly at nighttime rather than anything else.
Right.
Uh,
So that sort of reminds me a little bit, and maybe it won't you, but it does me a little bit. Similar to what happened to Farley Mullet, right?
yeah,
He ended up moving into a city, and although he never could quite get away from the outside, I guess that was sort of his gig. Um, so you did end up in Europe and the Middle East and all of that, and I just wonder if you tell us a little bit about how that happened.
well, I had a bookshop in Canada before I came here, and because of 9/11 and other things, excuse me, I was doing pretty well. It was mostly internet, but I opened up a shop. And then when 9/11 happened, it's like selling like 100 and some or almost 200 books a week by post went down to like 20 or 30, like
Right.
just overnight. So it was a really struggle to keep going. And then finally, I just got tired after 10 years, boxed everything up, came to England for a month vacation because I knew a few people here, and so I stayed here for a while. Went to a bookseller to speak to them to see if I could get a job in a bookshop or run a bookshop here. So that's what I did, and they sort of promised me, but they couldn't because I didn't have papers or anything yet.
Well, he froze up a little bit. What's that? Is it our internet? Okay. Well, Sean's frozen in time right now. Hopefully, we'll get him back here in a second. Oh, I wonder if he lost his power. So we'll keep talking, and I'll go in a direction that Sean and I have been discussing a little bit. Of course, we have a lot in common. Sean did some archaeology. I don't want to tear his story away from him. So, Scott, you can hear me. Can you see the picture moving, Scott? Okay, so Sean jumped off the internet, and he's probably going to hop back on. So we'll have to see how that works. Yeah, and he did say he was having power issues. I think this there's going to be technical difficulties, but in my lifetime, the notion that we could have a little TV show with a fella sitting in England while we're sitting here would be pretty remarkable. So we'll see if he can get back on here and where we go from it. So, yes, a moving picture, Shawn frozen. Shawn dropped off, so let's see if we can get him back. Okay. So anyway, just to tell you what's going on here a bit while Shawn's trying to reconnect. This morning when I woke up, my wife said the truck had moved. I said, what? And I looked out. So where I normally park, I'd look out one window, and my truck was down by another window. So I thought, uh-oh, wonder if somebody got in it and went for a joyride or something. And I went out and almost killed myself trying to get out to the truck. And it was, and we looked on our security cameras afterwards. The truck was sitting on ice, and it just slowly went down the driveway. All right, Shawn, are you back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I got kicked out, and I just couldn't get back in. Internet was working. I left you a message on Voxer, but it's worked now. I don't know what's happened.
Oh, Scott Danielson thinks it was Steve.
Didn't hear your story.
No. Is he frozen again? No. Scott Danielson thought it was Steve trying to knock you out.
Oh, yeah.
So you came over to England after a vacation or during a vacation, right?
Yeah. And I was more or less unofficially offered a job, but it took about a year to get my papers. And in that time, that bookshop was being bought out by somebody else. So all those new shops they were going to build didn't happen. So, and I started working in a bookshop here, but I found that it was very difficult to get a job because I kept saying I didn't have UK book selling experience. So
I would different than anybody else's.
Yeah. And basically it's like, if somebody were
So he froze again. We'll get through this. Yeah, we're being hexed. What's that? No, he'll do what he wants to do. So anyway, back to my truck story. We watched on our video, and the truck had just slowly slid down the driveway until it hit dry pavement and then stopped. Thank goodness. We didn't want to go out on the road. But we have about 1.5 inches of ice everywhere. And I went ahead and put about, I don't even want to know how many bags of salt down just to try to break it up so nobody gets hurt. But it's been pretty weird because we have a lot of snow on the ground, but we've had a lot of thaws. So we'll have, 25 below for a couple of days, and then it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been a little weird. That's danger, right? The ice is more dangerous than the snow, I think. So I don't know if anybody can still see this, but they can? Okay. So we'll have Shawn try again. And if he's going to send me a Voxer, I get the thing turned off. So let's see. Now, let him try once more. Oh, I hear something.
Well, I'm back. I don't know what's happening. It just every time I try to tell that story, so nobody wants to hear that story.
Well, now I do. Oh.
Anyway, so I got here and I did a bunch of interviews, but yeah, I didn't have enough UK work experience to work in bookshops.
Okay, which makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So I was telling a story where I got up this morning and my truck was farther down the driveway. And I looked on my security camera, and it was sliding for hours slowly because of the ice. And it did not go in the street. But, I had to go buy a whole bunch of salt because the ice is about 1.5 inches thick. And it's it's deadly. You always worry somebody's going to get hurt out there, older person fall or whatever. And I qualify as older person, so I don't want to fall.
Well, I don't want to fall either.
Yeah, no. So now you're in England, you got a job, and even though you, for some reason, don't have the right books you sold or whatever, you did visit different bookshops, right?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't done as much as I'd like to, but I went to a few people. Well, London, some London bookshops. York, York was that's about 8 years ago, I think, and there was a lot of really nice bookshops there. But things, and Oxford, Cambridge, but they're all closing up. That's the problem. Even when I've been here for 16 years, and when I first came in Oxford, there were so many used bookshops, and now there's only a handful.
Right. Are a lot of those people online now?
Some of them I think are online, yeah. And some just have closed up,
Right.
you know. And there's a lot of people that have been, they're retiring, and their children's just nobody. They don't want to do it, and I think that's happening everywhere.
Right. You think of some of that's real estate cost? It's so expensive to have buildings now.
Yeah, definitely. Like in London, I don't know how you could afford that, and even here, in places in this little town of Bedford, it's like the rent is really high for
Right.
like you won't get a bookshop on the high street, on the main street. It's always has to be somewhere else, and there's only really one like used bookstore here. There's another one, but it's a charity shop. It's a charity bookshop.
Okay. Yeah. So we were watching we get what's I don't know, it would be different where you're at, obviously, because they're your channels, but we have a streaming service called Acorn, and they do a lot of the British shows, and
Yeah.
there's another one called BritBox. And we're watching a piece last night where they were talking about gardens, and they were in Wells Cathedral, the gardens around it.
Yeah.
And they start showing the town. Just gorgeous. So I'd love to get it. I know you have a book collection that includes each of these individual cathedrals, right?
Yeah, I do have a few things on the Wells Cathedral. I've never been there.
Okay.
I've not been to the Wells Cathedral, but I've been to other cathedrals. Uh, I really like Sainsbury, or Salisbury. Sorry, my brain's not working. Salisbury Cathedral.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
that was the site of Rutherford's famous book, Sarum, right?
Yeah, because Sarum's the old town that's outside of Salisbury.
Yeah, somebody told me that's the birthplace of the Book of Common Prayer.
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's had a worldwide literary influence with language and everything.
And they also got a book there that somebody about 600 years ago, some students clapped it shut on a rat. So the rat's been sitting in the book for 500 years.
It tells you how often it's really read, right?
Yeah.
You imagine being the person that found that. Oh, students don't change.
No.
So, how about Oxford? Do you get up there? Have you gotten up there?
It's been a while. Yeah, Oxford, I really like. I really, really like Oxford. And that was one of the first places I came when I originally came as sort of vacation wise, and I spent a week there, walking around, going to the colleges and the bookshops, definitely. And yeah, I really like it. But it's been about 6 years since I've actually been there now. So yeah.
So did you get to the famous drinking spot for Tolkien and Lewis and all them,
Yes.
the Bird and the Baby or whatever it is?
Yeah, I always forget the name of that place. It's the something Child.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I can't remember.
Somebody will throw it in the comments for us.
Yeah. I always forget the first part of it, because it's right across, which I really like. Is it's almost, you walk straight across the road and continue in behind. You get the museum. It's in behind the Natural History Museum. It's the see, brain's going. They've got stuff. They've got shrunken heads there. Anyway, that's
nice.
their big claim to fame is shrunken heads. It's a great little the Pitt Rivers Museum. That's what it is. I couldn't think of that. Yeah. So that's always
the
nice.
Inklings meeting place. Green Stick Cottage asked, and it is the Inklings meeting place.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys in Oxford were famous for
Eagle and Child. That's it.
Eagle and Child. Yeah, right over my head. The thing I always read when I read about these folks is they walk so much.
Yeah.
Is Oxford a good walking town, or?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Because you got these little sort of lanes you can go through, and that are just, you know, wall, like they're only like, you know, 6 or 8 feet wide that you walk through, and then you wind up somewhere else, you know, that you're
Right.
not sure. It's really cool. I really like it. And I always, when I used to go quite a bit, I used to go get on the first bus, which is about 5 a.m. So I'd get there at times when the sun was coming up, and it was really nice to have that with a bit of fog and stuff. It was always nice doing that.
Nice. So you end up staying. You get to these towns, and you get to the bookstores. When did you start your collection?
Here?
Yeah. Yeah, I know you've had more than one.
Yeah. I suppose it was after I got a full-time job, because it was probably about a year and a bit that I was here. And the reason why I did it was because I wanted to read some books, and I couldn't find them in the library. And you have to pay to get interlibrary loan here.
What?
So it costs you anywhere from like £3 or more, £2.80 or something, or was. And I found that, you know, for an extra pound or two, I could buy the book that I wanted.
Right.
So I fell back into buying books.
Yeah, I would never dare charge for an interlibrary loan here. They'd run me out of town on a rail.
Yeah, it's normal here, and the thing is, you only get it for a couple of weeks, and it's
Yeah, we switched ours to, I think the standard's a little over a month, because it's just by the time I get it back, give it to a courier and get it to the other library, the poor person never had a chance to read it.
Yeah.
So what was the focus of your collecting when you started?
It was P.G. Wodehouse,
Okay.
because Everyman's did a series. I've got the whole collection now, and there's about 95 of them, I think, little hardcovers. So I started getting that because I wanted to read it, and then was George Orwell. There was the complete George Orwell. So I don't have the hardcovers, but I got the paperbacks, and I started buying those. It's everything he wrote, every scrap of paper, basically,
Right.
with lots of commentary and so forth. And so I started buying those.
And then I see you have, what is it, the National Biography behind you?
Yes, yeah, right here.
That's a huge set.
Yes, it's 40 volumes, and I don't have any of the updates. This is the newest one, but yeah, Wodehouse is fun. Yeah, Wodehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
and yeah, it's next library set, but it's great.
Yeah.
I do love it.
Yeah, what my dream is to get the OED, and it's one of the few times I would settle for an ex-library copy.
Yeah, well, that's
a big
why
set like that, it's okay, you know.
Yeah. Like this is ex-library, and I'm perfectly happy with it
Yeah.
because the cost was good. And yeah, a second edition of the OED would be fabulous.
Yeah,
I'd love to be able to, and that's small. That's only 20 some volumes, I think. 20 some volumes. That's tiny.
remember the old book club? The book club they had the 2 volumes.
Oh yeah,
and little drawer, and you had the magnifying glass. Yeah, you got to be pretty hardcore to sit there like that all day.
Yeah, because what did they have? They had something like, there was 2 columns, and I think it was a double page, so it was like there was 3, I think, 3 on each column, so 6
Right.
6 double pages.
Yeah. You know, most of the print looks like that to me now in regular books. So I guess I just would have been good training.
Yeah, I couldn't deal with that because I can pick up those fairly cheap. But yeah, I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, there are occasions when I want to check it where I wish I'd kept mine. You can't really get them super cheap here. That 2 if you've got one in good shape, I guess it's cheap enough, $40 maybe. Unless you got lucky at a yard sale, nobody knew what they had or cared.
But it's not very often that I personally wouldn't use it to look up a word. It would be sitting there just, I want to read, and I'd just open it up randomly and read the entries, you know.
Yeah, I used to do that, but it's hard with that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why it wouldn't be that useful to me anymore with my eyesight.
Yeah.
I've got a really bright light here that I flip down, and I can now read. It looks light. It looks like there's lots of light here with the camera, but I can't read in the light that I have here.
Right. Yeah, I do the same thing. That's why you see on my chair usually there's that little light overhead. My kids say it's because I'm trying to throw a reflection, but I don't know what that means.
A halo.
Yeah, there you go. Not much luck of that. So you start with these guys. I've seen a few things that interest me when I watch a channel that stand out, and one of them was the transportation stuff. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, that kind of grew to areas that I wasn't expecting to. I was interested, first of all, in inns and taverns. So I started reading about that. And then, I'm interested in coaches, and then it's like, well, how do they get to that? Well, on roads.
Right.
Okay, so let's get some stuff on roads, reading roads. Okay, but there's also trains and there's canals. There's all sorts of things that are, and all the conveyances that go on these things. So that's where it got, 2 bookcases full of stuff.
So I imagine the canals are fascinating.
Oh yeah, the books. I've actually, well, I've been to a few canals and walked along, but it's the history of them, and because they're just interwoven everywhere, and they're now being dredged out and being used as pleasure sort of cruising rather than the workaday use they were.
Yeah, we get documentaries here where especially their like local travel within England, like they'll pick an area and then we'll see like they'll go, it's standard. They go to the pubs, they go to the canals, they go to the railroad, especially if there's a museum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they'll show the routes. And occasionally you get, which is really fun for me, you get the Industrial Revolution buildings, a lot of them being reused for other things. So we do see the canals here. And we did see one where they were doing the project like you speak about. They were dredging it. And it was amazing, the canal and then the railroad going over it. You had all these things. And then you look down and an interstate's going right up. I don't guess they don't call them interstates, but a highway going.
Motorways.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If it's a big one, they call it a motorway.
Okay. Yeah. I hear the designation. Sometimes they're just confusing. So I don't. Yeah. So you did all that with the transportation and the ends sort of tied into that. And we have a question here.
Yeah.
Particular books you want for your collection?
How many days do we have?
Yeah, greedy. Yeah, I'm with you.
To me, yeah. Well, we mentioned the OED for me. Yep. There's lots of African exploration stuff I would love to have. Film material, more London. That we'll get to that as well. London books, but they're sort of more antiquarian ones. It's almost endless, but those are sort of the areas that I would really like to expand and have more books.
Yeah, so you got a big interest in Africa.
Yeah.
I know you've been to the Middle East. Have you ever been to Africa? Well, I guess you have. You were in Egypt, right?
Egypt, yeah, that's the closest. It's sort of, I guess you would say it's a bucket list for me to go to South Africa and go to Asandwana and Rorke's Drift and the other sort of Zulu War place and other places around South Africa. I have a huge interest in South Africa. I have since I was probably 12 or 13 years old.
Right. Good. I always associate South Africa with the thriller writers from like the 50s on through to the 80s,
Oh, Wilbur Smith.
And so a few others. They were really good at that. So, yeah. But you did spend time in Egypt. You have spent time in the Near East. Does that still do anything with your book collecting?
I've been getting a few things over the years. Yeah, like I used to have a big collection of archaeology, Near Eastern archaeology, Egyptian archaeology, and I've got a few things. And last year I got this 180 some books that I got for free that somebody gave them to me, and I just had to pay the shipping. And there's probably about 20 or 30, books on ancient Egypt. The one you had on the thumbnail for this was Cyril, I can't think of his surname
Aldred?
now.
Is it
Aldred, yeah.
Aldred? Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got that now, and I've got a bunch of other, the Thames and Hudson, that series.
Right.
And yeah, I enjoy that. It's all stuff I've read before, and I sort of look at it, yeah, I really like this, but I'm running out of space.
Right.
And the big thing is, it's like, will I get to those anytime soon is the big question for reading, because I've already read them all before. But there's a few things I want to get. I do want to get a nice copy of God's Graves and Scholars.
Right. That's a wonderful book.
That again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That one I don't, I can't remember where we were discussing it. Maybe our last talk. That does not, at least as far as I know, there haven't been a lot of books like that since.
No,
I don't know if the fields just exploded, so you really couldn't do it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I know there wasn't, like, I think it was, Steve sort of asked that kind of thing, because when I was studying it back in the early 90s and doing some of it, there was nothing then, and it would only have to be something in the last, like, maybe 20 years,
Right.
which I really doubt it.
I think as a body of work, Brian Fagan, who's a Brit, he lives in California, he's done a really good job. But I think he likes to dig in a little bit, so that overall survey, I know he did a textbook that was really good, but as far as a general history for most folks.
Question here. Yeah, I still, Michael, I still have all those books piled up here. There's about half of them that I probably will pass on to the bookshop here and stuff, because there's ones that I just probably will never get to reading, even though it's all good stuff, but it's just difficult. But yeah, Brian Fagan, I do like his stuff. Yeah, he's done a textbook. I used to have various editions of it, I think.
Right.
And I think I've got one here. It's the villa in Britain. I think the Roman villa in Britain. I picked that up a couple years ago for like 50p. So I when I see stuff like that for so cheap, you just can't leave it. You just can't. Even though I know I'm not going to read it, but I know it's a quality book, I can't leave it.
Right. So I think if a young person was saying, well, I want to start an archaeology collection, you could do worse than just hunt down every volume that Brian Fagan ever did.
Yeah. There's a lot like that. It depends on what area, whether you want the history of or that. But he did a wide variety of stuff. That's the one thing. A lot of them are specialists, but he's done a lot of stuff. The British, Roman, Celtic, everything.
He even wrote a book on sailing.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
He's, I always think of it from my perspective. It's a typical Brit. They go home and then they sail halfway around the world the next afternoon, then they come home again,
It's just, there is this kind of thing for the British, the aspect of that the academics have this weird sometimes hobby on the side, because they were sort of rich and they'd have maybe this country house and they collected books or they did something else,
Usually gardened, I think.
Yeah, a lot of gardening. Yeah. That's a big thing.
Yeah. So what is so in the British Isles, you've traveled a little bit. Did you get over to Wales?
No, I haven't actually been to Wales. I would like to. I've been close. Sometimes, but I've never actually been to Wales. Like, I've been to the northern side, the eastern side, and the south side of it.
Okay.
But I've never actually gone into Wales. Not for any reason.
Scotland?
Scotland, no, I haven't gone that far north.
So you're an English specialist.
No, I'm interested in Scotland as well, and Wales and Ireland, but it's just I haven't been able to get there yet.
Well, the last 2 years would be tough to get anywhere, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because I think the furthest north that I was, and it's not very far north here, is York.
Okay.
And that's that was I did that over a 3-week period, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I think.
And do they still have a lot of the medieval digs going on there? Or?
Not when I was there, because that was winter time, so there was nothing going on. But I do still see stuff occasionally in news or on Twitter, or I used to, where they were doing, and there was Viking stuff as well. There's the Viking big Viking site there.
Right.
So, just as a prelude to Sagalong.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's coming up, right? April, I think. Yeah. So the shelves in your house,
Uh,
how many books do you think you have?
Close to 4,000, I think, or maybe, well, somewhere between 4,000 and 4,500, I think.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
so it's not a huge amount, but it's in a small space.
Right.
It's in a very small space. And right now there's a lot piled up because I just the last couple of years I got so much, and I haven't been well enough for to do anything with it. So they got, when somebody gives me 100, almost 200 books, and it comes in, and I just pile them. I look
Right.
at them and pile them.
Well, getting a bookshelf to an apartment, transporting it, making sure it's the one you want and it fits in the space. I mean, it's a heck of a lot easier just to say yes to the books, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can get it delivered. Like, you can get anything delivered here. So, and they are flat packed. These are the white ones here are IKEA, so they're flat packed. And I just sort of sat there. I guess it's 2 years or 3 years ago now. I put these up. I had 10 of them. So, and they're right up to the 9-foot ceiling, basically.
So the shelves seem to be able to take the weight.
Yeah, yeah. They seem to be pretty good. And then now, like, most of them are double stacked, either with Blu-rays or DVDs and
Right.
other stuff all over the place.
Yeah, I noticed that some of the older particle board things I got, they'd get that big bow.
Yeah.
And then I'd flip them over. Eventually that's all going to give away, right?
Yeah, well, that's what, like, some of the other ones I have here, older ones, they were cheaper ones, brownish. They're that way. They are going a little warpy at times.
Yeah.
Just reading here is maybe
a Hoglander.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Oh, maybe a Highlander. I don't know. Oh, yeah, Highlander, 80s movie. Yeah, we know what the movie is, Tom. I don't know if I want to be a Highlander in that movie.
No.
I've gotten used to keeping my neck.
Well, especially, like, when you see how they lived, and like, do you want to live in a castle like he did, in the 1500s or 1600s?
Too cold, too drafty. Yeah.
Yes.
So Jessie says that she sees a lot of the nonfiction that mentions archaeology in Egypt in particular at the library book sales. Yeah, they can be a great source for nonfiction, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing for reference stuff. It's the only place you can find some things like this here. This
right.
Where the hell is it?
I didn't even get my hands on the screen.
There it is. Yeah. There it is. There. Because to buy that anywhere else is just insane. Or sometimes just an older book, because they're deacquisitioning older books, right. And it's just great. And just because it's an old archaeology book doesn't mean it's bad,
right?
Yeah. If it's general, like, it can be obviously superseded, but if it's a archaeological report, that doesn't get superseded generally.
Right.
Yeah. Northman, I don't know what that is.
I didn't get to see it. I'll look for it now, because if it's about Vikings, I'd love to see it. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. There's been a lot of stuff, movies, TV shows, books on the Vikings. They seem to be, I think they sort of are built for that type of thing, right? For a drama series like that. But I just watched the Wheel of Time here, and so I know fantasy is not your big thing, but just to get it to TV where you're at, I mean, it's got to be different than when you were in Canada.
Well, yeah. It was weird because in Canada, like, during the 80s, the British TV we got was through PBS, and then a Canadian similar channel from Toronto. And I always thought that, everything was BBC, that everything was great. All TV there was great.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, but it's all shit in general.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and then there's a few things, and it's been getting worse over the years. But
Yeah,
it's like anything. If you can pick the cream from American TV,
right.
and if that's all you have, then it looks great.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I haven't really had. You pay for a TV license here if you watch live TV, so
What?
it's worth. Yeah, you pay for a license. Um, James Harriet, yeah. I've watched the new All Creatures Great and Small. I don't quite like them that much. They're interesting, but they just don't have an atmosphere. The acting is not like the original one. Uh, but yeah, you pay a license fee that's so much a year or so much a month if you watch live broadcast TV. But if you watch stuff on catch up, it's called, like on a streaming service, you're fine,
Huh.
unless it's now a BBC streaming service. The BBC, you got to pay. So
Wow.
you can't watch BBC stuff unless you pay.
Do they have commercials?
Generally, no, not
Oh,
the BBC, but the other channels do. The other channels do, like ITV, where Morris, you were saying before you were watching Foyle's War, that
yeah.
has commercials. That when it's normally done, it's got commercials.
Okay. Yeah, because I also I have an app on my phone where I listen to the various BBC radio stations.
Yeah,
Yeah, and those can be a bit confusing if you're not from that part of the world because they each seem to have a focus, and I'll always pick the wrong one. And then I'm bouncing around trying to figure out which one's which.
yeah. Well, I like the BBC ones. There's a lot of stations, but I like the BBC Radio 4. Or I did. It's changing now. I hadn't listened to it for about a year or something, and then I started listening to it again. This is not the station I remember.
No, yeah, everything changes, right? Yeah, yeah. So movies. When you do the movies, you love movies.
Yeah.
So do they still have art houses there, or is that what they call them, or is everything just a big theater? Or
Well, they're just cinemas. Like they have large cinemas. Jason's saying they got to pay TV license regardless of what you watch. I guess even catch up. Oh, I hope they
okay.
don't do that here. But yeah, just cinemas. There's what do they call those there? That you got a whole bunch in one place. The small
Oh,
ones.
Cineplex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got things there, but they've got larger ones. I haven't actually been to a first run film since Gosford Park. Since when I left before I left Canada. The
Wow.
only times that I've been to cinemas or a theater to watch them is a silent film
Yeah.
and silent film festivals and that kind of thing. And they're usually on bigger screens. And at the Royal Festival Hall, I've seen the original Ben-Hur from 1926, I think. And I've seen the 1927 Abel Gance Napoleon twice, all with live orchestra. So
That's amazing. That's really
yeah,
neat. Yeah. Yeah. We have a little theater down from us. We have a few that are in smaller places. With what's going on now, we're still not comfortable going to them. But obviously, the last time they had a pandemic, they started building drive-in theaters. So we have one actually reopened, not
really.
far from here. Yeah. So you must have been to them before.
I've never been to a drive-in theater. I've
Oh
never
no.
been. No, because where I grew up, it was like 100 and some miles to the first movie theater. So I didn't see a film. The first film I think I saw was the original Superman film, or it was Moonraker. I saw
Oh
those
wow.
sort of similar together. So I don't know which one came out first or they played first where I saw it, but it was 100 and some miles to go.
Right. Yeah. It's about 40 for me. The first film I saw at the drive-in that I remember, my parents snuck us in the back of the car, and it was Tora, Tora, Tora.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think it was new. What's this?
Yeah, there was a classic book Swan. I'm not sure. Is that a typo? I'm not sure what that.
What's a silent classic? Black Swan you'd like to see found or reconstituted?
I'm not sure what he means by Black Swan.
It must be an Irish thing.
Yeah, I don't know, but
No, when he tells us, we'll be embarrassed that we didn't know.
Yeah. But if it's for a film to be found or reconstructed, there's quite a few. I don't know. Well, some Louise Brooks ones, I think. Louise Brooks films I'd like to see found. And also, you've gone very foggy. A missing movie. Yeah, so I guess
it's the lighting in here. I've got a window next to me.
Oh.
I go foggy on my own, but this is actually I probably could turn a little bit here and I see I just disappear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I would think some Louise Brooks stuff, and also too one of the biggest ones is the what's it? London After Midnight has been one that's and I'd also like see F.W. Murnau's I can't think of the name of it now, but it's one that he did about see, I'm trying to think. This is where the brain fog kicks in. I can't connect the synapses. What are the? See, that's the thing. I can't think of the word. You know what clowns are. Midnight. Sorry.
I think of it at midnight.
Yeah, but you know where clowns are in. You know, the big top and stuff like that. What is it?
Circus?
Circus. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, I just can't connect it. It's like I read a story about this guy who had the brain fog too. He couldn't say the word dog, so he had to explain what the dog was in order to get people to understand what he's talking about. And that's exactly what it is.
Oh, that must drive you nuts.
It does, and it's just sometimes it's worse than other times, you know. But yeah, so and it's F.W. Murnau did a movie about the circus. And that one is supposed to be really good, and it'd be nice to see that. And well, the main one I think would be Eric von Stroheim's full cut of 10 or 12 hours of McTeague.
10 or 12 hours?
Yeah.
Yikes.
In Sherlock, and I don't. It might have been. But no, I think Jason, because you said, Jason, you said you read a book that talked about London After Midnight, I think. So I think that might be. I don't know about Sherlock, but anyway, that's just an aside.
Speaking of Sherlock, if we're going to speak of somebody who's living in England, I have a favorite Sherlock Holmes on film or on the screen anyway. Who's yours? Did I do it to you again?
Yes.
It's because I'm so far away, I can get away with
it. Jeremy Brett.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But then on radio, which is a very close second, is Clive Merrison.
Okay, I've never heard him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. Is that easy to find?
I think it is. Yeah, they did. Whitechapel. That's Jason, because I remember him talking about that. They did the whole canon. They did every single one plus a few others.
Yeah.
And like the Jeremy Brett one, they wound up with two different Holmes. I mean, two different Watsons. Mainly in that case because one died. The actor died, so they grabbed somebody else. The second one is, did you ever watch Fawlty Towers?
Very rarely. I did watch a few. Now, sometimes British humor is a little lost on me. I struggle a bit.
Manuel, anyway, wound up being Watson on the thing, and he does really well. So anyway, but yeah, they are excellent. They are excellent audio, full drama audio, like old time radio stuff.
So do you listen to a lot of radio? Old radio?
Yes. Well, I used to more than I do right at the moment, but I still do. I used to listen to a lot. I've listened to way too much because it was great. Like when I had my bookshop or I'm doing other things, like when I was having my online business, when I'd be typing in books and researching, I'd be playing like 10 or 12 hours a day, old time radio stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
So-
don't mention the war. that's a Faulty Towers joke. So
Okay, I'm out of the loop here. I do. Speaking of some of the British comedies, I mean, it's always funny when you try to do that cross cultural stuff. So, like when I watch Doctor Who, I just don't get it. It just I watched him on PBS in the 1960s and 70s or 70s, I think, or whatever, and I just never understood it. And yet, I know people absolutely love it.
Well, especially
what's that?
Especially with Tom Baker's and his Jelly Babies.
Yeah, I didn't get it, and I do that now sometimes with the humor. Now, there's other times when I love it. Like I like watching. I have to do it on YouTube. A show QI.
Oh yeah,
I can watch it when it's Stephen Fry, the old ones, I guess. And when they do something, I always think they'd never be able to get away with that here.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's pretty fun.
There is stuff that you see on TV here that you just know, that would never fly in North America. It never would fly. Scott saying he couldn't get into Doctor Who's. Well, I like Doctor Who. I haven't seen the new ones, but I've seen probably most of all the others that are still existent. But I was just told that actually there was about half a dozen or more old episodes found somewhere in the Middle East, because they BBC during the 70s wiped the tapes.
Really?
Used the tapes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess so. One thing I do know you like is Babylon 5.
Yes.
And I just saw one of our streaming service has them all back on again. So I wonder if that's because they're going to remake the series.
Could be, yeah. I think it's been delayed a little bit. I looked again the other day, maybe last week, and the CW that it's on has been sold, so it's delayed, but they're not dropping it. It's just been delayed.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm purposely trying to steer clear of science fiction here a little bit, even though it always finds it way back in. So I'm going to go in a little different direction here because it just popped into my head. I remember when I first started watching your channel, and I picked up on your channel pretty fast. And you mentioned poetry.
Yes.
And you do write it, right?
Yeah, I haven't recently in the last year or so, but yes. I've got a book published. It's published by a small press out of New York called Siren's Call. It's dark poetry. They mostly publish horror.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And do you collect?
Yes, I do have. I have probably because there's slim volumes of poetry. As I've probably got about 800 to 1,000. I don't know how many exactly. Yeah, I have a lot of poetry. And it's a kind of thing where there's a few poets I really like, but then I like when I'm reading. I mean, when I'm writing, I like pulling stuff off and reading little bits and places to get my mind working. I like to see how a poet uses the words together. I might not read the book cover to cover, but I'll read bits of it to get inspiration.
Yeah. So I think of lyrics. And another thing you mentioned early on and I had to cheer when I heard you say it because I knew it was going to be the only time I ever heard it on YouTube, was you were mentioning Johnny Horton.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm trying to think. Make sure I haven't get them mixed up with the restaurant because, right? So I mixed the names up. But what was it? The Battle of New Orleans, Battleship Bismarck, all those.
Think of Bismarck, yeah.
So I just laugh because, of course, that's real storytelling, right?
Well, my dad liked country music, and he'd play that. So when I was really young, I heard this, and they tell the story, the Battle of New Orleans, and Johnny Reb, and all that kind of stuff, and I sort of was like, I kept wondering, well, is this real? Because I didn't know. So then I started looking into it. So it got, I say it sort of, in retrospect, it probably is the thing that got me interested in history, which then got me interested in archaeology.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
I can still do the Battle of New Orleans, but nobody wants me to because I put my whole heart into it. Yeah. So I recently picked up a volume that I associate with Alaska and Canada. And I didn't know until I picked the book up. It was one I would read as a kid, but I didn't know until I looked into the bio in the back that the gentleman was actually from England, and that was Robert Service.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that big up where you were at, or?
I think some of his poetry and stuff, but I think I took it in school, but it just never really, like, I didn't know anybody else that read it outside of that.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something I remember reading, and I think I've got a few books as well of his.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned here A.E. Housman, and I just finished that bio of him. Do you like him, or?
Yeah, I really like his long poem. Oh, what's the name of it now? I can't even. Again.
Shropshire Lad.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that, and he was a real scholar too, like, with Greek and Roman, classical scholarship and everything. Yeah. Really, really interesting guy, and he didn't write a whole lot of poetry, but I really, really like. Last year, I bought a nice little vintage or older 1930s, I think, edition of. In Buckram, of Shropshire Lad, because I've got it in various ways. But what would be a dream dig for you two travelers?
That's a Marshalltown trowel, by the way.
Yes, yeah. I still got mine somewhere. I should have dug it out. I still got
mine. There you go. Yeah. So where would it be for you?
I've said before, like, the one area that's always interested me, and because I don't really know that much about it, is like in the steppes, the Kurgans, and stuff like that, because I don't know much about that area, and that's always intrigued me. But also African, prehistoric African cities are interesting too. So I would say it'd be one or two of those, because I've been to Egypt, I've been to Jordan, so I don't need that anymore.
Right, you've done it. Well, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, a lot of my time was spent in Russia, Moldavia, Romania, that type of stuff, and I love it there. And I probably wouldn't head exactly there, but I'd head to the place that had the best hotel, the best food, and the most comfortable conditions. Because I don't know, a lot of people don't realize that when you're on an archaeological dig, the older you are, probably the tougher it gets.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't do the bending down anymore.
No,
they'd have to dig a hole for me to be sort of this height, so I could do this and sit on a chair.
Yeah, you'd have to hope it wasn't that little hole that led down to the snakes in Indiana Jones. You do it. Yeah, I'd want something more comfortable, but. I'd actually think I'd go more in the historical direction. I'd get away from mine was lithics and all that. So I did a lot of that type of stuff. I would get closer to where maybe we could get a little more story.
Yeah. Well, when I did the salvage archaeology in Ontario, like, there was a lot of times, historical farmhouses and stuff like that we dig. Privies were always great to dig, and for those that don't know what privies are, they're the holes that you have put the outhouse on top of. So there's lots of
information. I don't know if you've seen that TV show. We get it over here, so maybe a couple years late. It's called Digging Britain.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've seen that one. Yeah,
it's actually quite good. And she does a scene where one of the guys comes up. He's digging coprolites.
Oh yeah. Is that an artifact? The big question is that an artifact or an ecofact?
I think it's a
man-made. Is it man-made or?
Yeah. Hey, look! I made it myself.
Yeah.
Barry Cunliffe, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've liked Barry Cunliffe's work for a long time. And that's another thing. Some of these shows sometimes have good companion books to them. Eventually, I always think of Michael Wood, and I know Jason Harrigan loved Michael Wood's Trojan book, there, the Trojan War book.
Yeah,
and those were excellent. Though sometimes those couple of the British publishers I really like, Timms and Hudson. I always love their stuff.
Yes.
Sometimes a little pricey.
Yeah, they're good general stuff like that. People's and Plate or whatever it's called. That's a fabulous series.
Yeah, I get those when I see them.
Yeah. I've got now about 20 of them, I guess, because I got a whole bunch with that free one, and those ones I don't think I'm going to get rid of, even though I don't know when I'll ever read them again.
Yeah,
but,
I would.
I love them.
Yeah, I know that some of them are updated, like Seton Lloyd's. What was it, Mesopotamia? That type of thing were updated.
Yeah, that I love. I do have that. I have like those were a few that when I saw them here before, I bought them because they were ones. Yeah, Mesopotamia and I think just the ancient Near East. I think he did the one, and those I really liked. I had read and reread them many times.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, and this is technical help. Stuart, Piggot. How do I say that?
Pigott.
Really?
Pigott. That that's how I know it's Stuart Pigott. Yeah.
I just couldn't figure it out. Every once in a while, I'll get especially a town name.
Yeah.
And they'll say something. I'm going, where'd they get that? Because I have to pronounce every letter.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a place I don't know.
Well, what's that place in Wales that has, I can't even get it on the screen, that link. It's got no vowels.
Right. Yeah. And you find out the name of it is Smith.
Yeah. Well, the best one is like in Woodhouse, where the name is spelled Fotheringay, but it's apparently pronounced fungi.
No, really? Okay. I went right over my head.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I run into that where I'll actually listen. And, every once in a while, somebody on my channel will go, where did you get that? And I'll look at it and I think I was spot on, but I'm not.
Well, it was like, the name, some conversation that came up when you were doing before, not you, but someone else was talking about Peter O'Toole's former wife that was on the first Dune film. Her first name is spelled Sian. And Jason can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the female form of Shawn. But it's Cyan.
So we ran into, when I was a little boy, there's so many Irish folks here, the Sean was never a surprise to me. I always knew what it was. But I had friends when I'd moved to other parts of the United States that would look at that name and, they would just automatically go the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times I get that when a lot of European booktubers that I talk to and that hang out with all of us. And a lot of times they think the country's a little more monolithic than it is. And they don't realize the distances and the cultural difference. A Vermonter and a Californian are pretty much two different places all the way across the board, right? So they'll see a movie and think that's the U.S. and it's not. So,
yeah, well,
half the actors are Canadian.
Yeah. Well, you think here too, like in England, like the names of places, some of them are older. Like there's a place, I never get this correct. It's just south of the river in London, but it's spelled Southwark, but it's pronounced Southwark or something like that.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
it's just so weird. It's like you hear there's a place Norwich, but it's spelled Norwich. And it's names like that. Like that's why they always laugh at Americans because they'll say Edinburgh, rather than Edinburgh. And I always say when somebody gets a little uppity thinking that I'm American and that I can't speak correct, I'll say Edinburgh. And that really confuses them. You've got Eden, and then you've got Perth. It makes sense.
You, man. Yeah, we do that here, though. We'll have people come from out of the state. Yeah. So in Maine, you would think it's Calais. There, it's Calais, and then somebody from another part of the United States is, it's totally different, got a third pronunciation.
Yeah,
and so we have that.
When you get the Indian names, like native Indian names, mixed in there is, that just compounds. Even where I grew up, there's places nobody in the rest of Ontario and Canada can pronounce the names of places where I was, because there was a big type site, archaeology site there, and the teacher my professor kept calling it Shigunda, and I'm going, what the hell is he talking about?
Right.
And then I saw oh, you mean Shagawinda?
Yeah.
And it's like, but he didn't have a clue.
Yeah, I lived next to the Pompanusic, right next to the Ottaquechee, and grew up on the Penobscot. So we're used to it.
Yeah. Somebody was talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls thing, saying that we should be. When I was in Jordan, there was somebody that was staying at the ACOR, the American Center of Oriental Research, that was doing research in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and specifically the Copper Scroll, which is really cool. I got to see that in person, and a bunch of the other.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I used to have some actually really good photographs, but I don't know where they are. I think they're probably long gone. I used to have some really high quality photographs of them too, color photographs.
I did couple semesters where we looked at that stuff real close, because a guy named Moulton that the library I worked in was named after. He was one of the first directors. You remember William Albright and all those guys? This guy Moulton was one of those guys, and pretty similar time frame for the schools of Oriental research and all that. So I had a fascination with it. I've got some of his old reports. They're so far out of date now. Yeah. And you read a lot of Kenyon too, right?
Yeah, Kathleen Kenyon. One of my professors, Lawrence Toombs, was a student of hers. He actually excavated with her, I believe, in Jerusalem, I think it was, or was it Jericho? I can't remember which.
He did both.
Yeah. So I don't know where he dug though with her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like her stuff.
Yeah. Is that part of the collection you lost?
Yeah, well, not lost. I'd sold. It got liquidated. Yeah, because I had a huge archaeology collection, and I started selling it off when the archaeology work dried up, and I started going to conferences. So I started selling off my archaeology books basically, and then I got some back later. But that's what I specialized in, was archaeology, mostly North American, like all sorts. I probably had about 20 or 30,000 archaeology books in total, to sell.
Yeah, the only one I know that really specialized in, and they probably were around when you were around, was Archaeologia. They had a big catalog. Yeah.
I've actually got some bound copies here. I picked up. I've got a shelf, I think, in I think Archaeologia and Archaeology, I think. They're quite nice. They're large bound volumes. I got them for nothing.
Right.
And they're sort of in the corner there.
Yeah, I think of the parts of the collection I lost. I was at the University of New Mexico, and that was when Binford was there. So I had all those big old Scholastic academic press volumes of his. They were gorgeous and all signed and all gone.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that he was the most readable guy in the world.
Well, I had a collection of journals too. Like I had the Near Eastern Journal of Near Eastern Studies. Like I had bound volumes of that. I had the what is it? The Palestinian Society, or Journal of the Palestinian Society, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. Palestinian Exploration Society.
Journal. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Palestine Exploration Journal. Yeah.
So Jason wants to know about metal detectorists, amateur. I think there's rules in England about that, right?
You can do whatever you want with a metal detector here. Like I was so shocked that there's it's legal for pot hunters, and they'll go out and dig up sites.
But don't they have to give it over and then they get a cut? Or
well, yeah, I think there's something if you find like gold or stuff like that, or jewelry, that you sell it to the state, to the museums. But it still means that you're going in with a shovel destroying evidence. I do not like metal detectors. I know there's a big thing, and some of them are very knowledgeable, but unless you get proper legislation, like anybody can go out and do it. And I think that's the way it is here, that anybody, you just go out and buy a metal detector, you can start going out and doing it. If you've got permission to get on the person's land, you can do it.
Yeah, they. I think where we see it here a lot is the maritime stuff.
Yeah.
So they go down looking for treasure because they watched a show when they were 12, and then they just destroy the site, digging around in it. You'll never figure out what was there. And every year you hear some big controversial case where the treasure hunters are up against the government, and
yeah.
So.
Well, it's different by state there too. I think they have slightly different laws, because some people, if they do have a site on their property, I don't know if it's still that they can sort of legislate or not. Well, they can dictate who does it and how it gets excavated, I think.
Yeah, it matters what state it is. So if you're in a state that has a ton of like archaic mounds, that legislation may be tighter than if you're in a state without much. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like in New Mexico, you're going to have stricter rules than maybe Vermont.
Well, like the site that I was excavating in Jordan for the summer school, and it was like all the locals, or most of the locals, thinking that we're digging for treasure. That's the belief,
right? Yeah.
And then like, in my site there was like in the balk, in the wall of the excavation, there was a nice it turned out to be a spout with a lion's head on it, but it was sticking out of the balk, and it's like, so I covered it up for the night with dirt and stuff like that. We come back and it's all hacked away.
Yeah,
I thought there was, we're hiding something.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, so it's I guess, metal detectoring is illegal in Ireland, I guess, except for the beaches. Yeah, here I don't think it is. I think you can go out and do it everywhere.
We see those Thames River people who walked out on TV here.
Yeah, they call them mudlarkers or something like that.
Yeah, you can see more doggone history in the side of that river. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and that is sort of, there's no context to this stuff, so there's no worry that somebody's picking something up,
You had the world's biggest collection of clay pipe pieces or something.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. All right, well, we're getting a little late here. We've been a bit over an hour.
Yeah.
And so I think we should probably call it quits. I really appreciate you doing this.
It was fun. Yeah, I don't know how much we covered, but
we covered a lot. Well, we covered a lot of areas, but I think we could probably do this more than once for sure. So I appreciate it. I do want to do a little shout out about, even though we're getting to science fiction a little bit, about the Future History Project. If you can just repeat what that is and let everybody know.
Yeah, well, Mark, myself, and Scott Bryant at the Bookish Bryants are reading Isaac Asimov's future history books, plus the books that are authorized by the estate, written by other writers. And we're just starting getting into some of those now. And it's pretty big. There's like 50 books that are, or more, that are involved with this in total. So it's going to be a year-long project, and just sort of going through, and I'm trying to add a few other things. I've read the biography or autobiography, 2 volumes so far, of Isaac Asimov, doing some videos on that, and I'll be doing other things and looking into critical material of his writings, and just discussing his view of future history and how he wrote it, I guess, because it wasn't thought out, it wasn't planned. In other words, it just sort of is being fit together, sometimes well, and then sometimes not so well.
Right. So a thing to throw out there about this, like right now, it's a huge project. It's a massive project. So right now I'm at a spot, you're at a spot, Scott's at a spot, all the people with us on Vox are at various spots. It has its own momentum, but just because you haven't started with the beginning, you could still jump in.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have to do everything.
No, you don't, because there are some people that are not reading the authorized material by other authors, and they're just going to read Asimov's material, or just read the robot books, or just read the Empire, or just read the Foundation books. there's everything in there, or some of the oddities,
Right.
And it's just, yeah. But the idea is that if you want to see it sort of beginning to end,
Right.
you read it from beginning to end.
Right.
But it's not necessary.
So I'm lagging a little bit because of work.
Yeah.
And then when I have vacations, you push ahead. You have other people doing different things. The Voxer group and stuff like that is still fun, even if you're in a different spot. So that's enjoyable in itself. So I think the thing is, you have your email on your videos, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So people can get a hold of you if they want to jump in.
Yeah, or leave a message, but yeah, or email me, and I've got a list, but it changes occasionally because as we go along, there was a change a couple weeks ago because one of the books were a little difficult to find, so I left that a little later to just recently, and also to group the subject matter a little better,
Right.
even though it's out of timeline. It's going to go out of timeline a little bit, but there is no perfect timeline with this anyway. So,
yeah. All right. Well, again, I appreciate this very much, and thank you for everybody in the chat. It was
thanks,
great
everybody. I hope we got all the questions answered. I'm not sure.
I don't even think we were close. Paul, I can't follow the questions very well.
Yeah, I can't see it on here. I can only see the ones that get pop up. I don't see the
you don't have them on the side?
No. It just says you're in the show. Everybody can see and hear you. That's all I have on the side.
Okay, we'll figure that out then. Yeah, we'll figure out for a future one if you're still willing to come back.
Yeah. It's been fun, and I just can't believe it's been an hour. It's coming up to an hour and 15 minutes. It's just amazing. Oh, are we going to stay actually until later because Steve's with Bookish Bryant, so we're going to continue.
I know the Bookish Bryants. I have no idea who this other fella is. Yeah. Yeah, we can hang out forever, right? Yeah, I can imagine emails I'll get from that.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Shawn.
Bye.
Bye.